Hey, what's up guys, it's Study here with a big update to Burst Totems build guide. In patch 3.25 Settlers of Calgary, there was quite a lot of different changes to the build, both buffs and nerfs, but I managed to turn nerfs in our favor and I made a few very significant changes to the build, so it looks way better now. And I'm so excited to share it with you guys. Previously, the biggest disadvantage of the build was the fact that we needed to press a lot of buttons, activate a lot of temporary skills in order to reach big DPS numbers. And now all these buttons are gone. We just place totems and watch them kill enemies without having to put a lot of effort in gameplay. So here's the breakdown to all the changes from patch notes that were related to Burst Totems build. I kind of like, there was 3 buffs and 3 main nerfs, I would say. So they added more duration support instead of increased duration support, and now we can use them build instead of cruelty support. That gives a lot of extra duration, so quite a lot of extra DPS to the build. Second buff was buff to Endurance Shards. Endurance Shards give 4% elemental damage mitigation now, instead of just giving all res. And the biggest buff actually is Totem Taunt Mastery is now back. We have access to it again. In previous few patches it used to be on Chieftain Ascendancy or Ascendant Chieftain. And basically the way it works is that when you place the totems, it immediately taunts enemies around it in a pretty small radius, but still it's very significant and very noticeable. In comparison to Decoy Totem needs to be placed, so it goes through the summoning animation and then it casts the taunt wave, and then enemies get taunted on Decoy Totem. But this Totem Taunt Mastery is instant, so enemies don't attack you at all in maps if you play it properly. And what are the nerfs? So they removed Infusion buff from Infused Channeling support. We used to get 17% more damage multiplier if we could like maintain the buff from Infused Channeling self-casting. So now it's gone. They removed Divine Blessing support and the nerfed Inspiration support. Technically you can still access Divine Blessing on unique boots, March of the Legion. But because of nerf to Inspiration, I didn't want to rely on this unique item, I decided to just remove Divine Blessing from the build altogether, and I started using Eternal Blessing instead. And the biggest nerf actually was nerf to Detonation and Ironwood, even though Ironwood partially got buffed at the same time, but basically we lost 2000 flat armor before scaling from the build. Detonation has 1000 less armor, and Ironwood used to provide 900 flat armor. So now it's gone, and I changed the way we mitigate physical damage in the build, and we rely more on physical damage, on endurance charges that is, and physical taken as elemental. There was some other changes to Templar tree. They buffed the amount of spell block you get on Templar side, Templar parts of the tree, and they added some extra max res, like 4 max res to the tree. And I tried to rebuild the defenses on the build away from spell suppression to spell block and max res instead. But because of buffs to endurance shards, which give elemental damage mitigation now, there was like way better way to mitigate elemental damage than max res. And block requires a lot of investments on tree, while spell suppression we can get quite a lot of on gear. So yeah, the version with block was way worse. There was like 2 times less damage. So I decided to step away from it. So as a result of these changes, let's see, this is the old PUB nodes, and the old playstyle requires us to place Burst Totems, Decoy Totems, then cast Temporary Conductivity Curse, place Sigil of Power, use Divine Blessing Wrath Aura, which is also temporary buff, self-cast Burst to get Infusion buff, right, and then throw Mines in order to generate Endurance Shards. So all these temporary buffs are gone from the build, and the DPS went from 11.2 millions to pretty much the same DPS, 10.4 millions. So we just place Burst Totems, we cast Assassin's Mark, which is a permanent curse against bosses, we will not need to recast it. We place Decoy Totems, and we have an optional skill here, which I didn't even include in full DPS here. Like we could throw some Stopless Mines without detonating them, so just like 1 additional button, and that could provide another 6 million DPS. Actually, the DPS will go to 16 millions. But yeah, we don't even need to do that. We already have amazing DPS. So the changes I had to make is because there's no Divine Blessing anymore, getting maximum stages on Sigil of Power is way harder now, because you need to spend mana repeatedly every second, three seconds in a row, in order to get some max charis on Sigil of Power. So I just removed Sigil of Power, I removed Divine Blessing, we use Eternal Blessing now on our Wrathor. I've removed Infused Channeling, obviously, because Infusion is just gone, so we don't have this anymore. And I actually managed to switch the build to crit. Simply because, since we use Eternal Blessing, we don't need to invest into mana reservation efficiency anymore. Because Endurance Charis were buffed, I switched to Conviction of Power instead of Divine Guidance. And as a result, we don't need to scale that much mana anymore. Because we have 40% Might of the Matter, so our life is like 5,000 to 4,000 mana. It's a good ratio. We don't need to scale mana to infinity like people do in Archmage builds, because we can't use Archmage support on totems, but we still benefit from mana scaling by using our Arcane Cloak. But again, it's not as beneficial. So I could remove some mana nodes on tree as well, and that provided me an opportunity to get and spec into crit nodes. And these top nodes with charges and charge duration allows us to get easy frenzy charge generation as well. So we don't even need to throw mines in order to generate frenzy charges. Like, all of this DPS is just placing totems and casting Assassin's Mark once per boss. That's it. So the build became way better as a result, in my opinion. So the change we had to make as well is physical damage mitigation, right? We can only use one aura now, it's gonna be Wrath, so no determination. As you can see, I scale no armor at all. But we go for 6 endurance charges. We get 4 endurance charges from Ascendancy and plus 1 maximum from here, and we anoint another maximum endurance charge here. And we get minimum endurance charges from rings. We can just bench craft it on our rings. So it's a total of 6 permanent endurance charges. Speaking of charges, we also get 5 permanent power charges and 3 permanent frenzy charges. They get generated over 45 seconds once we enter the map. And as a further replacement for determination and physical defense, we also will try to get a shield with physical damage reduction on it. We can roll up to 8% here. On gear, I go with tier 2 modifiers, though it's a 7% physical damage reduction. And also we roll Eldritch Implicits on helmets and body armor. Physical damage taken as elemental. On helmet, it's an Exarch Implicit, 6% on lower tier. On body armor, we don't know yet. They did say they removed Gravisus and Veil, but they also, in return, they add Eldritch Implicit. We don't know the magnitude. They didn't give it in patch notes. I would assume it's at least 10% on the lowest tier, because body armor is a bigger slot than helmet. So helmet has 6%. Probably body armor will have 10 or even more than that. So overall, like, summary of all the changes in 3.25. The build's DPS became way better because it doesn't rely on any temporary buffs, temporary debuffs to enemies. So it's like permanent 10 million DPS. And defenses, the effective HP drops a little bit, but as a result of buffs to endurance charges, and we even started using them now, and some other changes, it's still on a very good level. And defense probably became even better because of return of Totem Taunt Mastery. Like, this can allow us to not even get hit in maps almost at all. We also combine this Totem Taunt with longer taunt duration from Decoy Totems, so that should be really good. So in this PB I included multiple versions of the build. There is a fairly new feature in Path of Building, the loadouts. It's in the top right part of the screen. Yeah, you can see it on screen as well. I tried to describe that also in the notes section, by the way. Make sure to read them. So you can switch between early maps, medium SF, and min-max version of the build. So again, what you do is you click here, like at the top of the screen, to the right of Templar Hierophant. There is loadouts. There is 3 loadouts in this PUB: early maps, medium SF gear, and min-max trade gear. When you change the loadouts, it changes 4 things. It changes the passive tree, it changes the skill setup, it changes item setup as well, and it changes configuration. So when we switch in-game on our characters from one loadout to another, I explained that in the notes section here. Basically, it depends on gear that we have, and we're gonna talk about that once we will be talking about gear. But for now, let's start with tree, passive tree. So early maps, medium SSF and min max trees, they're actually the same tree, just different level. So early maps I took level from 83, the medium SSF is level 97 tree, and the min max is level 100 tree. So I like the medium SSF as the main tree. What I would take on tree, so a lot of crit scaling for totems. Totems crit here, crit here, crit here, and crit here. We get increased damage and 2 lightning masteries here. Lightning damage, damage on the left. We still take a few sources of increased mana. We get quite a lot of health too. Let me switch loadout to medium SSF here. So because Storm Burst scales really well with skill effect duration, we obviously really want to take both skill effect duration wheels on tree too. And this wheel is really close to a lot of spell suppression. Reflexes, Mage Bane, the Evasion Mastery on tree, so this is really helpful with capping spell suppression with our gear entry here. On Ascendancy, we take pretty much standard Totem routes. We take Medium Charge and Arcane Surge, which gives a lot of damage multiplier. So yeah, like I mentioned before, this is not a Elemental Overload tree anymore, it's crit. From Charge Master we get Charge Duration, which allows us to have permanent auto-generation of Frenzy Charges. We actually convert Physical to Lightning now with Lightning Mastery and a modifier on Benchcraft on gloves. This way we don't really need to use Physical to Lightning, and we have room for critical supports and more duration supports, which is a new buff version of increased duration support. And yeah, so when we switch to min-max, we just take a little bit of extra mana from tree. And I also have all the leveling trees here. We're going to discuss them in the leveling section. Now let's head over to skills. So now it's important here. So different loadouts. For early map loadout, we use Storm Burst Totems. We use Decoy Totem. We have Detonate Mines skill gem linked to automation support. And this allows us to use Wave Conviction Mines with Arrogance, High Impact Mine, Charge Mines. So we just press one button, we just throw mines and they will automatically immediately get detonated. So we don't need to click the Detonate Mines button anymore. So these Wave Conviction Mines will apply exposure to enemies, 15% penetration basically, and it will generate frenzy charges for us. So once we will get to medium SSF gear, we will not need to use mines anymore, because we will get automatic frenzy charge generation, and we will get automatic exposure from glass as well. But yeah, so early on, starting from like level 35 and until level 80-ish, like it depends when you get the gear, we really want to use these Wave Conviction Mines, and this is like the only additional button that we need to press for our damage. And then we have Arcane Cloak linked to Arcane Surge and Automation and more duration. So more duration helps a lot with Arcane Cloak uptime as well. It links to automation, so you don't need to click it, it automatically will be activated. In order to activate automation, you need to put it on skill bar and like activate it like an aura basically. It will start rotating and it will start working. Some people didn't notice that. So early on also we use Determination Aura, because initially, like during leveling, we will not have all the endurance charges and we will not have gear with physical taken as elemental on it. So physical damage mitigation early on will be really bad. We still can rely on Totem Taunts, so honestly I think on softcore maybe you can't even switch Determination to Wrath immediately. I would still recommend to use Determination until like level 80-ish. Until we switch to better gear for medium SSF. And then Frostblink in combination of Shield Charge is my favorite. Some people like using Shield Charge with Flame Dash, but Frostblink can be used in the middle of animation of Shield Charge, so you can cancel it anytime you want. This is why I prefer Frostblink personally. And Assassin Mark, a curse that gives a lot of crit. You curse the enemy once, it doesn't have duration, so it's permanent. So next setup, next loadout is medium SSF. As you can see, skills also change here. We still have the same Storm Burst Totems and Decoy Totems. We have Assassin Mark still, Arcane Cloak Automation. So shield charge, we have actually extra room here because we could remove automation detonate mines. So we can also use momentum support to make shield charge even faster. And instead of determination, I use Wrath Aura. This is way more damage this way. And I also put this here like in gray. It's optional. So Stone Blast Mines linked to level 2120 Arrogance. Minefield and Swift Assembly. So these are like the extra button I mentioned. We can use it. So it's not shown here in full DPS. Like this is without the Stone Blast Mines. They're disabled as you can see. But these can add like a lot of damage. So honestly, sometimes when I play the beast, I feel like there is nothing to do. Like you play stones, you play decoy totems, you apply Assassin's Mark, and that's it, right? Like you have to just stand still and wait. So if you don't need to dodge like boss's abilities or something like that, might as well press the Stone Blast Mine button once or twice. We don't need to detonate. We only throw them without detonating. Because Stone Blast Mine has an aura that applies nearby enemies take 4% increased damage from all the hits, including totems. Because of Arrogance, or effect multiplier is going to be 5% increased damage per mine. And with Minefields and Swift Assembly, we can throw a bunch of mines like per one cast. So this 5% increased damage taken equals basically additional 5% shock, right? It's sort of a damage multiplier to the build. So we can throw up to 15 mines, and this will add like 75% increased damage taken on enemies, kind of like 75% shock. So the full DPS will be like 16, 17 million 7. But again, so if you really want to be like super lazy and not press any buttons at all, like you can safely just not even use that at all. And the DPS will still be consistent 10 millions plus. And yeah, so we don't need to use Wave Conviction mines, Wave Conviction with automation detonation anymore, because from gear we will have automatic frenzy charge generation and exposure application. And the min-max tree. So here, basically everything is the same, but we remove the Stone Blast Mines as an option, and we start using Creep and Frost self-cast, linked to more duration, increase air effect, and intensify. So air effect and intensify both give a lot of increased air effect to the like chilled grounds you can create with Creep and Frost. The chilled ground by default lasts 5 seconds, as you can see, but with all the skill effect duration scaling from tree and from this support gem, it will last more than 15 seconds. And the chilled grounds also is like it's large and it's going to be following the enemy around. This is the movable chill grounds. This skill is really cool. So we need to use that in order to get massive buffs from Algar Mortis Gloves. It makes enemies deal less damage and take way more damage, basically. So it's also an easy button to press to get some additional DPS this way. We only need to press it once in a while against bosses. And this is the only extra button we need to press, basically. The leveling parts of skills we're going to discuss in leveling section of the video. Let's move to items. So we're going to start with early maps loadout as well. So here we use some like really basic items, just a little bit of damage and want, life, mana, resistances on the rest of the gear, some stats. And we still managed to get already quite a lot of DPS. So like very basic gear, level 83 passive tree. Actually, so this is not that much DPS because it thinks we have 4 totems, but I don't use Shaper's totem there, so it's going to be 4.4 million DPS pretty much. It's still important to get this physical damage converted to lightning. It's a benchcraft you can put on your gloves after you unveil that from June missions. Like you run June missions, you get random gloves, and after you unveil this craft, you will be able to benchcraft it on any pair of gloves later. We only need 10%, so even the lowest roll is good, like we just crafted once. The Amulet Anointment. Early on, I recommend using Ironwood. So Ironwood doesn't give us defenses anymore, but it gives Totems defenses, a lot of it actually. Physical damage reduction and Totem life. So early on, when the Totem skill gem is not leveled up yet, Totems will have not a lot of life, so that will be really helpful with Totem defenses. And also now, since Determination got nerfed, Totems also used to get buffs from Determination. So yeah, early on it's going to be helpful, and eventually we will be able to switch it to different anoints. Let's move to medium SSF gear layout. So again, this build is kind of like main tree is medium SSF. I play personal SSF, so here we have better gear. So important notes is Shaper Influence Shield. We can roll +1 totem on it, so we get to 4 damage in totems and 2 decoy totems this way. On the rest of the gear, we want to get spell suppression on helmet, body armor. We can benchcraft it on shields or just roll it on shields. On gloves and boots. So I have tier 2 spell suppression everywhere. And benchcraft on shield. And this way we can get to 100% spell suppression. So it's still like very manageable, very obtainable. In patch 3.25, by the way, they buffed the flat life modifiers on gear. But don't have these buffs in PUB yet. So I had to like assess the number. So I just added some extra life here. Maybe after PUB will be updated. The life modifiers might change, so I'll have to fix it. But yeah, for now I think it's pretty accurate. So the tier 1 life on body armor, for example, is going to be 189, right? So I assume tier 2 is like 149. It's pretty reasonable. So like I said, every single modifier on the medium SSF tree is tier 2. Like I didn't go for tier 1 modifiers. And so on armor we have like 3 modifiers and benchcrafts. On jewelry, 4 modifiers and benchcrafts. Yeah, also important thing, we need to craft minimum endurance charge on both rings. We also need to first unveil that from gym missions. So this way we will be able to have 6 endurance shards in the end. And yeah, so body armor, we get physical taken as elemental on implicit. And helmet also physical taken as elemental. So this is a good physical damage mitigation once we remove determination. And generation of frenzy charges, this is Syrian Exarch implicit on body armor. So in combination with 100% increased charge duration from Trim that we have access to now since we are Creed, we can just have permanent frenzy charges and we don't need to throw mines anymore. So basically, actually, okay, let's check out the min-max version of the gear as well. So like way better raiders here. So on shields, we really want to get physical damage reduction and suppression together. On helmets, suppression, body armor with suppression, and physical damage reduction ideally too. So it's gonna be like the goal to craft it. And out of unique items that we use is Algo Mortis gloves. I already talked about that when I was talking about skills. So we will use Creep and Frost in order to put enemies in chilling area. Creep and Frost linked to more duration and increase their effect and intensify. So chill area will be big. It will move around automatically because Creep and Frost chilling area moves. And we can trigger this sap on enemies, and they take increased lightning damage, so it's effectively 35% extra shock. These gloves also give increased effect on non-damaging elements, and these gloves are pretty common, so on Trade League it should not be too hard to get corruption, or maybe even double corruption on these gloves. There is plus maximum frenzy charge we can get, or flat crit for spells, or cast speed. There is quite a number of good corruptions. So Ashes of the Stars, Amulet is best in slot for sure. All this quality provides a lot of duration scaling to the skill. Mark of the Shaper, unique rank, gives just a bunch of damage too, but we need to combine it with Elder Influence Ring. The second rank needs to be Elder Influenced. We don't need to have any Elder modifiers on the ring, but the ring itself needs to have Elder Influence in order to proc this like 96% increased spell damage from Mark of the Shaper. And yeah, so Watcher's Eye, because we use unique gloves, we don't have the conversion anymore from benchcraft on gloves. And we need to get conversion from Watcher's Eye. And this is a double Watcher's Eye, yeah, also got physical extra lightning damage here. So this is the min-max tree. So this Watcher's Eye might be quite expensive, right? Overall, that's it in terms of gear. So when do we switch between different loadouts? Now that we checked out all the gear. So we changed to medium SSF in terms of skills, right? We stopped using wave conviction mines because we get frenzy charge implicit, and we get minimum endurance charge on rings. So basically, yeah, at this point, once you get Eldritch implicit on helmet, on body armor, on gloves to get exposure here, and endurance charge on rings, we can safely switch our skill set to medium SSF as well. We can stop using wave conviction mines and just chill, right? So I said that in no section as well. So we switch once we get the necessary Eldritch implicits. And we switch to medium SSF to min-max set once we get unique items, while still able to have like full spell suppression and stats and resists, right? So you can't just slap all the uniques real quick and just go with it. Ideally, especially on hardcore, but on softcore as well, would be nice to have like resist cap, right, and suppression cap before doing that. And now we can talk about leveling. Let's go to medium SSF loadout. So leveling, yeah, there is level in trees here, like always in my PBs. You can like scroll through these trees, so it's gonna be easier to see how they change over time. Yeah, pretty much just follow the tree. In terms of passive tree, there is nothing to talk about here, I guess. But so different skills we need to use at different stages, though. And we go all the way to level 97. And the min-max tree here. So skills. Let's go with the early maps. So initially we'll level with whole flame totems. I prefer using totems from the very beginning. Some people prefer going with standard racing layout where they use like different spells, like rolling magma. Yeah, totems feel really nice to me. Whole flame totem plus flame wall all the way until level 32. Also, we can use wave conviction mines as soon as possible, ideally, from level 16. It's going to be a great damage addition. At level 32, once we complete the library quest, we can also add detonate mines automation already, so that we don't need to manually detonate mines. We just press the button to throw them. So yeah, you can follow all the skills here in the leveling section of skills. So at level 32, we switch to Stormburst Totems. Initially, we use physical to lightning support until level 68, that is. At level 68, on tree, I take, as you can see, I finally take the lightning mastery for conversion. So this allows us to stop using physical to lightning supports, and we can start using crit supports. As you can see, critical damage, critical strikes. So critical damage is better than crit strikes if you have only 4 link. So the gems are listed in the order of importance. So yeah, once we switch to Stoneburst, initially we use Conductivity Curse instead of Assassin's Mark, because initially we don't go crit. Like while leveling, we use at Elemental Overloads, because like we don't have enough sources of crits to be able to, for crit to be better than Elemental Overloads. And eventually, yeah, so I recommend personally to use Determination Aura initially. We link it to Eternal Blessing. Because initially we don't have Endurance Charges as defense, and eventually we switch to Wrath Aura once we get... well, first, we get Endurance Charges from 3rd Ascendancy node around level 68, but we also get another 2 Endurance Charges later from like Gear and Anoint on Amulet, and we get Physical Techniques Elemental on Gear, like I already said before, and then we can safely switch to Wrath Eternal Blessing for a lot of extra damage. I think at this point I covered most of the things about leveling, and if I forgot to tell something, there is always more information in notes section, so there is leveling here. I also listed some possible unique items you can use on trades early game, so Mind Spiral, Singularity, Velocusine Ring, Dream Fragments, Lehupavol, Replica Prism with Belt are nice early on. Also Dark Seer, this is the... unique scepter. It has different versions, so life and mana version is what you want to use. These might be more expensive though, because Darkseer drops from tier 17 map boss, and Replica Dragon Fang Amulet for Stoneburst could be an early version of Amulet you can use. So in conclusion, I'm so happy with patch notes, honestly, and with all the changes I made to the build. Like I said, we don't have to rely on a bunch of skills now, a bunch of temporary skills. We always have stable DPS. We don't need to position ourselves specifically on Sigil of Power. We don't use Sigil of Power anymore. Just be wherever you want to be. And the boss can be wherever the boss will be too. Like, we don't rely defensively on Sigil of Power either anymore. The loadouts, make sure to use them. So early maps, this is a fairly new feature in PvP. This makes PvPs like way easier to navigate through. So it's a really awesome build now. In my opinion, this is the best spell totem you can lick start with. It's really efficient right from the very beginning, once you switch after first lap in Act 3, and all the way until the very end game. DPS is good. DPS is great, actually. Map clear is good, like not great, not bad. The addition of Totem Taunt. I'm the most excited about that. Finally, the Totem Taunt Master is back. This, like, it needs to be not underestimated. It's really, really good. It's so powerful for Totem builds. It makes us really tanky, and we can control enemies so well now. Hope you guys will enjoy this build. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the video description or on Twitch. I stream almost every day there. I will be playing on League Start, of course, too. And yeah, like I said, I hope you guys enjoy the build. Take care of your totems. Bye.